Okay, so welcome to 111. I assume that nearly all, if not all of you have seen me since due to the day off in the one quirky lab. We had labs before lecture this time around. I do get lots of questions about me, such as who do you think you are and who the hell are you? Get out of my house. So in a nutshell, my name's Todd Gibson. I'm a late comer back to academia, so I got my bachelor's. I actually started as a computer engineering major, but decided I didn't want to do the music, or excuse me, I didn't want to do the math, so I switched to music. So my bachelor's degree is in music, and then I, of course, was always a computer nerd, and worked in industry for a dozen years before going back to school and getting a master's and the PhD and change of careers. So here I am. And I've been here for about 2 years now, I guess. So yeah, what are we going to talk about? Let's start with this. You may have noticed that I started off by creating a screen recording. I do that with every single class. And usually within a couple hours, sometimes as late as 24 hours, particularly if it's like a long weekend or something, it may not be till Saturday, I'll get that recording compressed down and actually put online for you to watch. So if you miss class, you can hear the recording. It's a screen recording, so what it's capturing right now is my voice as well as anything that you see on the screen. Regarding attendance, I don't take attendance. I'm changing it a little bit from previous semesters. So I feel strongly about not taking attendance, and you all are in charge of your own lives and all that. But the problem that I get is that people take too much charge of their own lives, which means that they don't have to come to class because, by golly, I'll just watch it online. And all the power to you. In principle, I'm all for that. You shouldn't feel that you need to come to class if it's not doing anything for you. The problem that I get is a lot of people not only do that, but they decide, I'm thinking that I'm going to milk that hangover and not watch today's lecture. And they do that for about 3 weeks. And then it comes time to some project being due, and they've got 9 or 10 hours worth of video to watch, and it just doesn't work. So I wanted to come up with a way of dealing with kind of getting the best of both worlds. So if for some reason you either don't want to or can't make it to class, you're certainly not obliged to, and I would definitely am happy to have you watch the screencast instead. However, I would like you to keep caught up in the class. And so the method I was thinking of trying out, is to choose a silly term, a secret word. So what I'll do during each class is at some point, maybe it's at the beginning or end of class, doesn't matter, I'll just put up what the secret word is. And then I'll make a little assignment out of it, a 3-second assignment. All you have to do is prior to the next class, all you have to do is get online and submit the secret word as an assignment. Okay. If you're in class attending, you're going to see it, write it down, or remember it, because I'm sure it'll be something clever and memorable every time. And you're good to go. If you miss class, then in order to get that assignment, you would have to watch the video, or at least up to the point where I give out the secret word. And I'll generally make the due date of it prior to the beginning of the next lecture, and with a minimum of 24 hours. So if I get the screencast up late, like let's say that I teach on a Monday and I don't, for whatever reason, don't get the screencast up till Wednesday morning, even though there's a lecture Wednesday afternoon, I wouldn't make it due till Thursday morning. So that's kind of the strategy I'm thinking about. I may play with it a little bit. Maybe I won't do the secret word all the time. Maybe I'll decide it, I mean, it is totally lame, but maybe I'll decide it's totally lame and come up with a different strategy. But that's what I'm thinking. Likewise with the labs, I'm not requiring attendance at the labs. However, historically what I've done is I've primarily use the lab as support for whatever assignment or project you have to work on, and there will certainly still be some of that. So if you, based on that, if you've got the assignment well underhand, or if you think you can do the assignment 2 hours before it's due, then you just blow out lab and all right, fine. But this semester, again, I'm going to mix it up a little more. I'm going to try and have more collaborative activities, some additional work in lab. So that'll hopefully get more of you showing up to lab. Yes?
If you did the lab yesterday, if we finished the assignment, we don't have to go tomorrow?
So the question is, if you did get your Jaguar account and finish the assignment, is there any need to show up to lab tomorrow? The answer is it depends. So I will try and cover that here in a few minutes. If I forget, ask me again. What was I talking about? This is 111? Yeah. So we're going to the lab, going to do more collaborative activities. Okay, so that's that. Regarding if you're on a wait list, since the labs, even though I'm going to be mixing it up and we'll get better attendance at the labs, it's very, very rare that everyone shows up to every class. So what generally keeps me from adding anyone out of hand is that I'm limited by the number of computers. What I'd recommend is if you have a laptop, in fact you're supposed to have a laptop to be here, bring your laptop to lab. And if, in the rare circumstance that every single computer in there is filled up, then you can just do your work on your laptop. I personally, even if I did have the availability and convenience of those computers in there, I would bring my laptop in and shove the keyboard out of the way and set my laptop there. I just prefer to have my nice environment there to work on rather than those lab computers. And I'll talk more about how all that's going to fit together here in a few minutes. The wait lists, I believe the wait lists get purged at the end of the week, and so for any drops that there might be in the next 48 or 72 hours, there will be probably a couple people that get in off the wait list. Otherwise, you'll be thrown off the wait list. Come see me next week, and what you'll do is, if memory serves, you'll go to the computer science office, get a form, I'll sign it, and then you'll be added to the class. Okay. So no worries. If you're on the wait list, don't worry, I'll get you in. All right. So what I want to talk about next is the course shell and the syllabus and so forth. Before I do that, are there any other questions to point based on what I've said so far? All right.
Right over here.
Yes?
What about class 111X?
Ah, yes, good. So 111X, the way 111X works is it meets only one time a week. It's credit, no credit. If you sign up for 111X and you never ever attend it and you pass this class, you get credit. Okay? The only time that it's possible for you to get no credit in that class is if you fail this class. If you fail this class, then they look at your attendance in 111X and they say, well, you failed this class. Did you at least try to learn this stuff? Did you go to 111X? And if you were going to 111X, at least half the time you get credit in that class. So that's how 111X works. Excuse me. What 111X is it's taught by a junior or a senior, generally someone that's, in this case, I handpicked the person, so they're quite good. They will answer your questions, help you with homeworks and projects. They will throw out additional activities. All in all, unless you already know C++, the extra exposure is quite rewarding. And really, it's a low threshold, right? If you sign up for 111X and you're rocking and rolling in here and you're not really getting a lot out of it, well, fine, don't go to it, all right? It's pretty much a win-win situation. As far as the timing of it, that is actually being negotiated probably almost as we speak. Probably within the next day or two. The person's name teaching 111X is Andreas. Andreas will have a date set, and the first meeting will be next week. And the way it'll work is he'll pick some time as a candidate meet time in the late afternoon, early evening. I'm picturing something maybe in the 4 o'clock hour when most of you don't have classes. If you're interested in 111X or have signed up for it, you all show up to that class. Again, I'll announce it. And it won't only be you folks in here, but there's another 111 section, and 111X serves that section as well. And once you're in there with Andreas, you'll all get together and see if that time's going to work out or if a better time would serve more people. So it's really kind of informal. Everyone just kind of talks with Andreas and says, well, are we going to meet at this time, or is Friday better, or Monday better, or something like that. So that's how that'll work as far as the timing of that.
Are we allowed to sit in on that class if we don't sign up for it?
111X?
Yeah.
Yes, you're allowed to sit in on it if you're not signed up for it. I'll try to remember to tell Andreas that if he asks. Andreas is a pretty mellow guy. I can't imagine he would have any concerns over it. Certainly I don't. So if he starts talking at you, then you come see me and I'll set him straight. Any other questions? Okay. So a lot of the assignments and deliverables and all that is being done through Chico State's Blackboard, which is the name. Whoops. Hang on. This is going to be real interesting if I don't end up with internet connectivity. Let's see. Let's try that again. There we go. So 111, I believe I mentioned in an email or one of the announcements that this thing shows, here, let me see if I can blow that up a little. This is section 1 that we're in. You all belong to either lab section 2 or lab section 3. I will not enter these even once, so avoid them. Coming in here. All right. So there are notifications when you actually, notifications, all that is essentially takes you eventually back to this location here. Let's look at it. Yeah, so if I click on My Announcements, that takes back to the page you're in when you first log into this shell, which is what I'm posting after each class meeting. I'll talk more about that in a moment. This stuff, I didn't add this stuff. It looks like it's just telling you, giving you information about what I've been doing and assignments that are coming due and so forth. So you can look at that for notifications. Otherwise, what I do after each class is I post an announcement to what I refer to as the daily diatribe. Let me confirm that goes to the same place. Yep. And I'll put, by the title, I'll say week 1, Wednesday, January, whatever. And I'll just provide a few. It normally isn't this verbose, right? This is kind of an announcement exception. The next one I'll post it after this class. I'll give a summary of what we did. It'll say went over the syllabus and did X and did Y. And then there will be any links. So not necessarily so much today, but particularly when we're into the semester and we're doing coding, I end up typing a lot of files, little sample programs, and so forth. And what I do is I go ahead and I post all those files to this shell, and in the announcement there will be links to each of the files I did that day. Additionally, there will be a link to that screencast that's being conducted right now. And before I forget, let me say one more thing about the screencast. So it was secret word, it's magic word now. All right, so I'll explain why I'm doing this in a moment. I know that you're all here now, and none of you are blowing me off on the first day of class, but there's a method to my madness. So let me do it first. I'm still recording, but through the magic of technology, you can't see what I'm doing. It's a little exciting, isn't it? Magic word. All right. Okay, so note the time. Let me note the time on your phone, or on the screen. So right now it is 1:17 p.m. All right. Why am I doing the silly magic word, secret word thing right now? This is the reason. Regardless of how emphatically I tried to describe the fact that I have these screencasts, I always get 2 or 3 people who are struggling in the class, and it's a real revelation to them that I'm recording these. So what I'm going to do is force each and every one of you to watch this screencast. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Just zip the bar to 1 hour, no, 1 o'clock, 17 minutes after 1. Find out what that word is. And I haven't even put the assignment up. I'll put up the assignment and go and type in that word. That way I'm sure that each and every one of you has at least seen me record this one time and will hopefully remember that I do record these things. Okay? Also, I would offer that what you just did is a good way of doing note-taking. So one thing that is difficult is, I think, for me, is I'm a horrible note-taker. And as soon as I start writing a note, I can't hear what the instructor's saying, and so, well, I don't have to get into my personal issues. Don't feel like you have to write exhaustive notes when you're sitting in here with me. Enjoy the lecture, interact with me, so forth. If I say something that's confusing, an issue that you don't get resolved with the question, or you think it's important and you think you want to see it a second time, all you have to do is look at your phone or look at the screen and note the current time and just jot 1 or 2 words about why you wrote that time down. Then, when you go back to the screencast, you don't have to watch the whole thing and fish to the point where I was talking about something interesting. Just jump to 1:17 or whatever that time mark was and watch that 30 or 60 seconds. Okay, so that's what I would. That's how I think that you could best utilize the screencast as a way of taking notes. All right. Yes.
How should its waitlisters do this?
Oh yes, the waitlisters. I will go ahead and for a week or so I will dual post. I'll try and provide an external link to the videos as well. If you don't have anything by late tonight from me, then just shoot me an email. So we're using this external discussion forum, so even if you're waitlisted, you should be able to use that Piazza tool. All right, and I'll try and post that information there for the waitlist folks. If I don't get it on Piazza, then just ping me and that'll get me to do it. Okay. So what do we have in here? We've got the notifications. Okay, questions and answers. All this is a link to that Piazza discussion forum. If you jump to that's weird. Why did I not log in? Okay, let me do this. Here we go. So yeah, if you go to Piazza here, again, if you haven't registered for this yet, please do it. If you're on the wait list and you did not receive any sort of announcement from me, email me and I'll get you the announcement that'll give you some of these links so you can do some of this stuff. If you don't know my email address, Google it. If you don't know Google, please take a different class. All right. So that's what questions and answers is. It takes it there. I actually haven't used Piazza before, and I'm using Piazza instead of the Blackboard discussion tool because it's a lot better. The reason I'm using any discussion tool is I'm trying to change the way information is shared in here. So I'm pretty good about answering emails, and it isn't unusual for me to answer 30 to 50 emails before a project comes due. And so what I want to try pushing all this stuff to the discussion forum so that when someone asks a question, it'll obviously benefit everyone. It's a pretty nice tool if you're either embarrassed or don't feel it's relevant to have your identifying information in there. You can post something anonymously. If you think it really is a personal question, then you can post it to me privately. And then if I decide that it's appropriate to mock you, I can make it a public posting after the fact. I believe I haven't tried editing student emails. I think I can, or postings. I think I can edit student postings. So if it's kind of asked in a personal way, but it's a good general question, then maybe I can manipulate the text and then repost it for everyone's benefit. So it seems like kind of a cool tool. We'll find out. Daily diatribe, talked about that. Assignments. So these folders will grow and grow and grow. What we did in lab was we were working on assignment 1. I will get back to that in just a moment. I want to talk a little bit about assignment 0. And again, if you got the announcement, then that would have talked about assignment 0, an hour of code. Again, if you're on the wait list and don't know any of this stuff, email me and I'll forward you the announcement with the link. Hour of code was inspired as a way of introducing the kindergarten through 12th grade crowd into what computer programming is. But it turns out that, and it's short, so it takes an hour if you go slowly. It actually can take far less than an hour at your age, I think. I hope. It is really, really good. The reason I'm having you do it is it's really, really good at showing you what it means to think like a programmer. Okay, so it's graphical, it's kind of drag and drop. We're not going to be doing it that way, but the constructs are virtually identical. And the thinking that you're going through to solve these problems is exactly the kind of thinking you're going to have to do here to do the assignments and the projects. Okay, the reason that I want you to experience this thinking is because of the attrition in this course. And there are two things about the attrition. Historically, about a third of the people fail. And it is a lot of work. Some people who've done coding before or just take to coding naturally, this class is a piece of cake. Others who it doesn't come naturally to, I want you to find out as soon as possible whether this course is for you. So that's why I'm having you do Hour of Code. If you thought Hour of Code was easy, was fun, I like this idea of thinking about problems this way, great. If you found it not fun and a little bit frustrating, really, really make sure you want to be in here because it's far better for you to find that out now rather than 6 weeks down the road when you've lost your tuition money. All right. So I'm gonna actually try pushing some of these thought exercises way up to the front into next week because I really want you to examine whether this method of problem solving is for you. The analogy I use is art. I go over to the art department. I can take as many painting classes as I want. I cannot paint a profile for the life of me. I do not have the knack for art. I think it's exactly the same way with programming. Some people have a knack for it, some people don't. Okay. So that's why I have assignment 0. If you do not have any account yet, go ahead and do it. You get a little certificate at the end, have it emailed to you. When you do get into Blackboard and get your account and so forth off the wait list, then that certificate is what you submit as a deliverable. Let's look a little bit about the physical formatting of how Blackboard formats this stuff. There's text information that I can put in here, so I'm talking about Hour of Code. There will normally at the bottom be an assignment submission that I put in here, and it's rather unintuitive looking. You all are almost invariably going to be writing code, which means that you'll have files that you need to give to me to grade. So if I look at all of this stuff, I'll come back up here in a minute. If I come down here, you have add comments. You can add comments if you want. I'm not looking for them, but I'll certainly read them if you have them or the grader will. But this is the key one, assignment submission. You want to browse your computer and you'll want to find the C++ files to then attach to your submission here, and then you can either at the bottom submit down here, and there's a submit link up here. So that's kind of, if you haven't ever worked with Blackboard, that's how you submit files. The other thing I'd draw your attention to is near the top of each assignment is this rubric, which is going to tell you how I'm grading. Not a lot to grade on the code certificate. I'm not going to make sure you spelled your name there on the certificate correctly or anything. But this list on the projects in particular can have 10, 15, 20 different items. You really, before you turn in any assignment, what I would do is before you begin working on an assignment, I would read through this grading rubric, and then as you approach completion of your assignment, I would go through it again and make sure you have everything covered, because there are a number of people that lose points and didn't realize that they were being graded specifically on just to throw something out from the ether for putting a comment in the code with your name. Obviously, very simple points. So take a look at all the rubrics for the assignments. All right, coming back to, let me show you one other thing that I've got going that I'm trying to provide this semester, particularly the beginning part of the semester. We've all seen this from lab. And I forgot, the first lab group, I forgot to tell this. So the question in the back earlier was, do you need to come to lab? There's only one lab, right? The Tuesday, Thursday lab. Does the Tuesday, Thursday lab need to come to lab on Thursday? The Monday, Wednesday lab folks are obviously done for the week. But for everyone's benefit, let me point this out, is assignment 1 is a little bit different in that this is the main assignment following these steps, and then the submission is here, but it skips right over this folder, and this is content overview and quiz. Okay? If I click on that, I'm giving a basic summary of what we're dealing with right now, and it's all these simple Linux and Unix commands. And what I need to do is I need you to get a little more proficient at using these than you get with that simple assignment of creating a couple directories in a file called first.txt. So what I talk a little bit here, I describe some of the simple commands without how to do them, I'm just saying what they are. And then I provide external resources. So this gets to the part of the course where I say there is no textbook in the course. If there's one domain in which there is a ton of information online, it's nerd stuff, computer programming stuff. So what I'm going to try and do, particularly in the beginning part of the course, is I'm going to find relevant resources online and just direct you towards those. I think that's far better than blowing $100 on a textbook. So in iRead, I say, look at all these, just skim them real quick, find one that seems to match your style for how you like to read and how they're describing things, and go through one of them in a little bit more detail. And then I say some things to try. So try this, try that. I'm just trying to get you to exercise some of these commands. This stuff I'm not going to be grading on or anything, so if you don't do it, I'm not going to know any better. But you're going to maximize your chances of succeeding in this course if you do this stuff. And then finally, I have a quiz. And the quiz is low stress. It's not timed. You can save your progress and come back to it later. It's only 3 or 4 questions, multiple choice. And it's basically finding, do you have a clue to what some of this stuff does up here? Okay. So for people who like to game the system, start with the quiz. And if you don't know the answer, go back and figure out the answer and then answer it, right? That's how you game it. If you really want to learn this stuff, please take a little extra time to do this. Again, I'm just trying to flood you with additional resources and information. So one, you can make sure that this is right for you, and just to maximize the fun. All right. So that's how the assignments work. The quiz in that folder, so again, it's a little bit confusing. I may have to revisit how I have this organized, but the way assignment 1 works, and the way it'll work for several of these assignments, is that there will be this is the longest assignment description I have, I think, with all these photos. A short assignment description, a submit assignment, and then a folder in here which has additional content, things you can try, in a little quiz. All right? That does not exist on assignment 0. That takes us to the syllabus. I won't read the catalog description. Objectives. We are developing code in C and C++. They're both programming languages. For those unfamiliar with them, C++ is essentially a programming language that sits on top of C, meaning that 99% of the things I do in C work just fine in C++, so C++ is like a superset. It adds some additional features. The reason that both are being covered in this course, and definitely by and large, we're almost exclusively focusing on C++. We do have some engineering majors in here, and the engineering majors need to do some embedded systems work. Generally what you use for that is C instead of C++. So occasionally I'll focus in on things that are specific to C, and that's why I'm doing that, is to cater to those folks. We're going to talk about programming style, documentation. It's all right, I'm not going to be spending weeks and weeks having you write documents for me. But it'll come up as a topic for discussion. How to develop software. This is a big one for me, using concepts of object-oriented and structured programming. And what that is, to say it at its broadest stroke, is what is the approach you take to solving problems. So if you've already done the hour of code, those are the tools that you are using to implement a solution to the problem. These in that context, the move forward commands, the turning commands, the loops, the if statements, that's your toolbox that you're using to solve problems. There's a whole step before you use that toolbox, which is you're given some ill-defined problem, and what is the process you're doing to take this ill-defined problem to the point where you can now use those tools to solve it. I'll give you an example. The second project in this course, I put you in the role of game designers. And when I give you so how are you accustomed to getting assignments and projects and courses? For this project, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to make sure it has blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. What you get for this project is you get something like 2 emails and 2 memos. And you have to figure out, how do you take this information and figure out what the problem is you need to solve. After you figure out what the problem you need to solve is, how are you going to design a solution, and then how are you going to then take that to your toolbox of code and put together a coded solution. So through mechanisms like that, I want to show you the approach you take to solving problems. And activities like that are collaborative, at least at the analyzing the problem and designing a solution. Once you get to coding, you're on your own. Yes?
I know in our other computer science class, the teacher didn't want us working together. This one, is it fine? Or?
So the question is about working together. Your expectation is that the solutions you code up are your own. So in the example I just gave, and I kind of trailed off with how it ended, the approach you take for problem solving should be a very collaborative activity, and if you go out in industry, with very, very rare exceptions, it always is. And so I want you all working in groups, figuring out what the problem is and how you're going to solve it. And it's an iterative process. Small groups for a while, we come back here and talk about what's working, what's not. I give you some ideas on how to move forward, and it kind of goes back and forth. And that'll stretch at least a couple class times, if not a third, for this one particular project. Once you get to the point of coding, then it's expected you're going to sit down and start tippy-typing on your own. Okay? It's fine to use your friends as sounding boards. You know, I'm struggling with this. How are you solving that problem? Things like that, that's fine. The issue comes when you start staring at their code and typing it in for yourself or just grabbing wholesale copies. Now, that's another thing that is that sneaks up to you on this course. There are people, unfortunately, every semester that get in that habit of either doing one project together or one person doing it and handing it out to 2 or 3 of their friends. Early on, there is literally no way I can tell that that's happening because we're starting from the very basics. So it's, for instance, in a foreign language class, we're learning, we all know that I have a love of German. We're learning, what I want you to do is I want you to put together a sentence in German that involves a ball and a girl. And so in German you write out a sentence that says the girl bounces the ball, right? Well, if I see someone else write something very similar and turn that in, it doesn't mean they're necessarily cheating off each other. That just simply means I haven't really given you a lot, right? There's only so many things you can do with the ball and a girl in a sentence. So it's the same thing here. In the beginning, we're dealing with the minutiae of the programming language, and your assignments are pretty small. And everyone's assignment's going to look pretty darn close to each other. It's once we hit about the halfway point in the semester that the assignments get a little more meatier. And there's a tool, you can look it up, it's called MOS. If I type MOS programming. experiencing using MOS to detect cheating on programming. Let me see, Morse code. All right. Morse code similarity. Yeah, that's it. A system. So this is an automated system, and what I do is or the grader throws all of your code into this big bowl, and this thing then does an all pairs search. So your code is compared against everyone else's code, and so on and so forth, and it measures similarity. And it's clever enough that if you change variables, move things around, it detects that. So it isn't simply looking to see that everything's identically the same. It can find code that is, by and large, similar. So it's at the middle of the semester that this becomes an issue. And then, so obviously you don't want to cheat, right? We all know that. I do, last semester I even had someone who turned in this amazing project that a 311 student couldn't have done, and it still had the original coder's name in the comments. Okay, don't do that. If you have any questions about it and you want to ask me, am I going over the line by doing this with my partner? That's fine. Just ask me about it and I'll let you know. There are 2 levels of reporting cheating and plagiarism and so forth. One is that I let you know, and I let you know that I'm sending a report to Judicial Affairs, and generally if it's that, it means that you flunked the course. The other is that if it's something that's kind of setting off warning bells in my head, I'm not necessarily obliged to tell you about it, but I am obliged to tell Judicial Affairs about it. And the reason is that what Judicial Affairs is looking for is they're looking for patterns. So if there's a single student who has 3 different instructors sending these little private reports about concerns of cheating, then they know they've got a problem. So that's kind of the rationale behind that from their perspective. I don't know. It's not a pleasant topic. It's stressing out a person for me to call them in the office and talk about, this looks like you're cheating. It freaks me out. I hate doing that stuff, so don't do it unless you have it out for me. So what do we got going here? Okay, this is just talking about specific constructs that we'll learn in the language. Testing meeting times. We're all here. We know that. Office hours. My office is if you go right down this hall. When you hit the wall, you're essentially at my office door. We talked about 111X. We've talked about the textbook. This is formal stuff that I'll let you read on your own about what you should be able to do. I've talked about the format of the course. Let's talk a bit about grading. So the assignments make up the bulk of the grade. Assignments, they're somewhere between 1 and 2 assignments per week. It really depends on the week. I've put these online, put 10% here for online quizzes. This is going to be a combination of that, what you saw in that folder that accompanied the simple Linux commands. And that also includes the secret word quiz, if you will. There is a midterm and final. Midterm's 10%, finals 10%. I'll give you copies of the finals that were given out in previous semesters. And I would say the one place where people, so this is the that folder that I had on content in the little quiz in there that said, why don't you try this? One of the reasons I have that in there, and I didn't have it in there last semester, is that people I felt weren't getting enough practice and they're just simply waiting for me to give you an assignment and they weren't doing any work unless I gave you an assignment. So the reason I'm giving you this extra stuff to try is that it'll get you to pretty much ace these 2. Assignments, that's the bulk of it. Projects. So there are, historically have been about 4 projects in the course. They're just larger things, larger assignments, if you will. I try to, for the most part, I try to make them a little more authentic and real, whereas the assignments are generally focusing on a particular topic area. I don't grade on a curve, so if you get 90 to 100, you get an A. The minus and the plus is at the border, so if you get 89, that's B plus, 90 is A minus, 92 is A, and so forth. So just right at the border is the minus and the plus. One thing to note about how the points are done on the projects and assignments. So those rubrics, as I said, depending on the assignment or the project, may have 5, 10, or 15 items on the rubric. That means that there could be an assignment that adds up to 15 points, and there could be a different assignment that adds up to 40 points. Every assignment is weighted equally, so do not look at the points and think, I'm not going to do this because it's just worth 3 points. Even though it's worth 3 points, it's worth exactly the same as this assignment over here, worth 100 points. Okay? So the different point value is just for making it easy to create a bunch of items for the rubric. Does that make sense? Okay. No late work. So what happens to that submission link? Coming back to the assignments, there was the text at the top and then that submission link at the bottom. That submission link disappears after the due date for the assignment. So if you are late, you won't be able to turn it in. Now, I do get a lot of concerns about being like 1 minute late or something like that. So what I actually do is I say the assignment's due at 11:59 at night, but I actually don't take that link away until like 5 in the morning or something like that. So you've got plenty of slop time there to get in your assignment if you're running a little bit late. All right. I don't want to get into all the details of what we're going to cover first, second, and third. That'll become pretty obvious. We've talked a lot about the cheating, and so what I need to do now is I don't have enough time to talk about other stuff that is important, so let me whip that stuff in real quick. If you are using you want to go to this installing Linux. If you're running a Windows machine, I have a link there that'll take you to different ways of getting Linux on your Windows box. If you are using a Mac, go ahead and go to the installing Linux link. That will give you these steps to get Linux going on your Mac. I should say that the Mac already has Unix going. The one thing it's missing is the compiling tools. So this will show you where the terminal is, and it'll show you how to get the compiling tools. Even though we aren't doing any compiling yet, that's coming up next. This stuff down here is for older versions that I left. Finally, let me talk very briefly in the 4 minutes remaining. Well, 5 minutes by my clock up here, so I'll steal all 5 of them. Right. So I drew this for one of the labs. These are the lab computers. This is Jaguar. Again, the Jaguar is a computer that's dedicated for your work. It has a big super huge disk, and whenever you do any work on these lab computers, whenever you write out file X, it's actually writing out to Jaguar. So if you were to work on a lab computer, go home and log into Jaguar from home, you would see your file there. Okay, so the lab computers make it seamless. Where it's a little bit more difficult is when you're at home on your laptop or desktop as it may be, and it has its own little disk. And once you install Linux on your Windows box or you get the terminal going on your Mac, you can essentially do all the work on your own computer. You really don't need Jaguar. But you will be working on the lab computers, so there's a need to get information back and forth. Also, so what you need to do is you need to learn how to transfer information back and forth from your home computer or your laptop to the Jaguar server. And what I would recommend you investigate is FileZilla. You can just blast FileZilla. Okay, just Google it. It is a program that allows you to transfer files from one computer to another. I really strongly recommend that you experiment with that. Try seeing if you can transfer a file from your computer to Jaguar, or see if you can log into Jaguar and find that first .txt that many of you have done and bring it back to your own computer. I will let you experiment with that and come back with questions on it. The one piece of information I will provide to you is there is a field called port. You do want to put the number 22 in there. Beyond that, I believe many of you can figure it out on your own. I would actually give a demo of it, but I'm about to run out of time, so I won't do that at this point.
What's the host name?
The host name will be the host name is from home is jaguar.csuchico.edu. If you're on campus, you don't need the csuchico.edu, but that's the host name that you would type in. I'll go ahead and write port 22. And any other questions? All right. So next time I'll talk a little bit about more of the environment we're working in and moving forward.
If I'm in your O2 lab, is it okay if I were to go to the O2 lab?
Yep.